How are they going to know? They have to be here.
Skip, are you in the Teams meeting? Can you, so you could just admit people if needed?
All right, so where do we get this slide?
Would you turn the mic on?
And one way that's not just four kids, the fences on the land, this is I'm good. He's like,
as part about
I like it, but you can show
Where's the remote for the TV?
you can hear us? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I should use the mic, right? I'm very quiet. Oh, I'm very quiet. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I know this has been a hot topic in the community. We do have a structured presentation before us. Stephen, our new property manager, will kind of be facilitating the meeting. The plan is to go through the slides in the presentation. We then have a section for questions and answers. We're going to go through the questions and answers. Once that's done, we're going to wrap it up with next steps. We're hoping to keep this to about 90 minutes and on time. So we're going to end all the kids' stories, all the presentations, balloons, flyers, streamers, all that stuff will be held for the next meeting. This meeting, we're just going to stay on topic. Perfect. Okay. With that, I'd like to do a special thank you for Dr. Harmon at the University of Florida. So Dr. Harmon comes to us locally all the way from the University of Florida. We're extremely grateful to have you here for your input and insight. Just so everyone knows, he did a webinar for about 4 hours. So again, that version will be saved. So he's going to condense that down to his slides for about 10 minutes. But he is available for questions, so you can share what they're seeing in the field and stuff like that. Okay? So with that said, I had confirmation that everyone could see the screen. I had confirmation that everyone could hear the audio. I'm going to turn it over to our new property manager, Stephen Cole.
Hi, everybody. I was really hoping to get a little bit bigger of a turnout so I can meet more people. But as I've already been formally introduced, my name is Stephen Cohen. So today we're here to talk about the Sugarcane Mosaic virus. And I imagine you're all here because you might have it. Need to learn about it, and that's what we're here to do. So you got me on the left. My admin is Shelby Carr. She said you'd raise your hand. Jonathan, who most people already know. John, raise your hand so everyone make sure they know who you are. He is our board president. Rick Goulden is not available for this evening to meet with us. George, if you would say hello. He is our treasurer. Jonathan Stein, our secretary, not here, and Catherine Stevens, our director.
And just, Jonathan Stein's on remote.
Okay, hello, Jonathan Stein. Good to know. Special guest, Dr. Phil Harmon. I think you've already been introduced to him. Skip Richardson is regional director of First Service. We've got Mike Kovensky. I say right? Where are you, Mike?
Yeah.
Good. And Stephen Spitz. Everyone wave to Stephen Spitz. Okay, so, and there you go. Good applause. Next thing is the agenda. I certainly don't have to read everything about the agenda. You know why we're here. But let's see what we got next going on. Objectives. Okay, we want to know what this virus is, how we got it, where did it come from, what's going on, what can be done. What is the Sugarcane Mosaic virus? And I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Phil Harmon. Here, would you like this?
Yeah, sure. Let's use that. Yeah, good deal. All right, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the invitation to come and speak to you guys today about Sugarcane Mosaic virus and the devastating problems that it's caused throughout South Florida, here in your community, but also in dozens of other communities, starting in Palm Beach County, but now spread up through Vero Beach, down through the Florida Keys, all the way up on the other side of the state through Fort Myers. Communities like yours have suffered from this problem that have excellent lawns of floratam grass, that has been our industry standard for 50+ years. They have succumbed to this virus. And so here we are today talking about an unfortunate series of events that has led to the destruction of some of our nicest Florida lawns. My name is Phil Harmon. I'm an extension turfgrass pathologist. I have a PhD. I've been doing this for 19 years. The first time we saw Sugarcane mosaic virus cause a problem for us in St. Augustine grass was in 2013. We knew about the virus prior to that, and as you might expect, sugarcane. In sugarcane, from time to time, it rears its ugly head and causes problems for sugar farmers. When it does, we have to come in and use a different variety of sugarcane to overcome the virus, a variety that's resistant. We had Floratam for 50 years. Mosaic virus caused mosaic disease during those 50 years, and nobody cared because it didn't kill our lawns. It caused some little yellow blades that you'll see in palmetto lawns that are being replaced today, and in citrus lawns and other varieties of St. Augustine grass, but it didn't kill our grass until about 2013. It is a virus. Viruses affect humans, plants, animals, fish, etc. And when they affect plants, some of the same sorts of things occur. They generally don't kill their host unless something goes wrong. They have to be spread by a vector. Plant sap, in this case, is our vector, where the virus is housed and how it gets from plant to plant on mowers and tires of mowers generally, but also by insects chewing on the grass, picking up the virus and moving it from place to place. So it's a virus. It has to have a host to survive. It survives from year to year in our Floratam St. Augustine grass, where it causes severe disease symptoms. Also in other varieties of St. Augustine grass, where it causes mild symptoms. And in some of our grassy weeds, like our crabgrass, that comes in and invades our Floratam lawns after it's been affected by the sugarcane mosaic virus. So we have a viral disease. It's fairly new. It's one that affects and attacks our specific Floratam St. Augustine grass that makes up, prior to the outbreak, all of the lawns in this community, I believe, and over 80% of the lawns within Florida. So it's very specific on which grass it attacks. Unfortunately, it attacks the grass that we have here. And the symptoms are those that you're seeing in the community. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We just walked around the community and looked at some of the lawns. The first symptom of the year generally occurs at the first cool evening temperature in about the December or sometimes November timeframe. You'll get some yellowing that occurs. Before that, that's kind of hard to find. That yellowing transitions to a bronze to brown color, and that bronze to brown color spreads down the stems of this grass and kills the grass. So it kills parts of the grass, different stems of the grass, and leaves our lawn bare and prime for weeds and other problems to come in and compete with our otherwise vigorous turf. When we don't have vigorous turf, we have problems with weeds. When we don't have vigorous turf, we can also have issues with other diseases like fungal diseases that can come in and make the problem worse. If we have viral problems as humans, we might know that if you're sick or you're run down or you're stressed, you may have a greater chance of having a virus outbreak, whether that's fever blisters or anything else. And the same thing holds for plants. The plants can hold the virus, house the virus. If it's a susceptible genotype like our Floratam and it's stressed from other diseases, they compound each other. So the fungus gets worse, the virus gets worse, and the medicine that we take for the fungal disease that otherwise works stops working to prevent those things on Floratam, those fungal diseases that further take it out. Then it make it unacceptable for us for lawns. So you guys are familiar with the symptoms. It's very unfortunate. It spreads over 2 to 3 years, becoming worse each year. The turf recovers in the summer, not all of it, and not to the point it was prior, but some of it recovers. And in each successive year during that cool winter temperature period, it gets more damaged and we have more weeds and more unsightly lawns. The spread occurs by insect pests called aphids. They fly around, they're impossible to stop. There's no pesticide that we can use legally to prevent those from transferring this virus. They're not very good at transferring the virus. So they randomly fly, chew on St. Augustine grass, fly again, land in someone's lawn, and transmit this virus infrequently. So you have to be lucky to get this virus as the first in your community. Once it's there, it can hop one place to the other, one street to the next, on these aphids, making spread very difficult to control. Within a street, on a street, we do know that the virus is also spread by mowers. It doesn't matter if I'm running the mower or you're running the mower or your community's PCO company is running the mower. That mowing cuts the blade, exposes the sac where the virus is, and grinds it with the tire into new grass and spreads it along as it goes. We've had many communities that have, again, suffered from this. We've tried various methods to try to prevent spread. The best that we've achieved so far is to slightly slow it down until it jumps larger areas from pod to pod or street to street within these communities. So we haven't been able to stop the spread once it's introduced. It doesn't kill all the grass all at once. It takes years for it to build up, 2 to 3 generally, and then it starts to get worse. And it also does not affect each lawn uniformly. So we can't apply one rule and say, you have it today, next year your grass will be dead. We can't apply that rule because it's biology and it takes time. And those stresses that I mentioned impact how severe that disease becomes and the timing of that development and progression. The one thing that we've seen consistent up till today, and it may change tomorrow, but I wouldn't bet money on it, is that once it's introduced, Floratam lawns slowly succumb to it. They have to be replaced, and 2 things happen. If the lawn is replaced with Floratam, they will die again. You've wasted your investment, and you'll have to replace them again with additional grass or transition out of turf grass altogether. Second thing is, if you put a grass that's not Floratam in, like a palmetto or a citra blue or another variety, the grass will survive. It will have the virus potentially, but it won't die from it, and you won't care because essentially it's not going to cause a problem for you as far as the aesthetics of your lawn. So preventing spread is key, but it doesn't work. Management is to replace the grass with a grass that's resistant, that doesn't die from the virus. And there are and have been recommendations made since 2013 to use various grasses. One of the biggest problems that we saw with these recommendations was with bitter blue. Bitter blue was the grass we tested and found did not die and did well in South Florida. When we recommended it for communities, along with palmetto and other varieties, we had some communities that invested and their lawns died. And we came back and said, wow, we were wrong. Okay, why were we wrong? Was bitter blue susceptible? As it turns out, no, the genotype bitter blue was not susceptible, but the sod growers that were growing this didn't know what they thought was bitter blue was actually Floratam. So the product that was marketed as bitter blue was Floratam. If you put Floratam back in these lawns, it dies. They didn't do this maliciously. They didn't know. We didn't know and couldn't tell morphologically by looking at how the grass looked. It looked like it could have been bitter blue, had a different color slightly than other Floratams. Bottom line is that the genetic purity of the sod products that were on the market was in question and was not reliable. So where we purchased sod, no matter what it was called, chances were good that it had some amount of Floratam in it. Whatever that percentage was, would die. If it was half palmetto, half Floratam, half the sod would die after you put it back in. May take a couple of years, but it would die. So the recommendation now is for palmetto and citra blue. Those 2 grasses don't die from the disease, and they have one thing in common, that they have some integrity of the sod products that are sold and marketed within the state of Florida for 2 different reasons. Citra blue is a new grass, one we're still collecting data on. It's a certified grass, meaning it has some genetic purity assurances along the production chain. And palmetto has similar assurances in its genetic purity for different reasons. A company named Sod Solutions markets that grass and controls who can produce it and ensures through quality inspections that what's produced is palmetto. When we did genetic testing on our grasses, we found those 2. If you purchase citra blue, it will be citra blue. If you purchase palmetto, it will be palmetto. Those are the 2 that we're recommending. There are other grasses that we can use, but we can't guarantee that's what you'll get, even if you purchase it, and it says that on the labels. So that's management and gets into the palmetto versus bitter blue kind of edge of the story there. I think with that, I've probably gone my 10 minutes, and we'll turn it back over, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions as we move on. A lot more to tell, as was mentioned. We can do a full day seminar on this. Not today.
Thank you so much. Who would have known there were hybrids of this, viruses, everything going on in the world, of course. There's a lot of useful information, so thank you very much. Before I turn it over to Steve Spitz, I did want to let everyone know, we do have the ACC process, submissions, some pictures as well. The board, as well as our ACC committee chairs and our landscaping committee chairs, thought it was important to kind of share as much information. Some people may be sitting in the audience saying, hey, if I'm going to replace my grass, I'm also going to go and do this or that or something else. So we want you to see what the process is. Nothing in the presentation, though, says that this is acceptable and this is what we're allowing. A lot of the guidelines and structures and establishing what the standards are throughout the community are still being defined. So since we're a new community and when the community was first established for GL said the standards are just look similar to your next standard. Advanced 6 years of the community, we've never actually written and defined standards. So one thing we're really focused on as a board, as well in conjunction with the ACC committee and the landscaping committee, is to define what those standards look like. Are brick walls okay? Are white? Are rocks okay? Is this and stuff, so on and so forth. So I didn't want anybody to see any pictures on the slides and think, oh, I can do that, or that's acceptable, or these are the new standards. But we wanted to give you something just to kind of spark ideas, know what others are doing in the community, stuff like that. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Steve Spitz.
Hi, everybody. Stephen Spitz, ACC. I don't think I need that. I'm going to talk just off the cuff really quick because I want to just mention the first residential management team that's here new, Stephen Cohen, and the Skip and Shelby. Sorry. Yes, so I just want to mention that they're doing a great job and we appreciate them. I also want to mention that the board, all the committee people and all these committees and the board is all volunteer. And they work a lot of hours. I work hours. I know everybody on the board works hours. So I just, I would like to say we appreciate them and all the hard work that they do put in. So with that being said, I want to move on to what the ACC is. The ACC is a committee that basically checks for architectural modifications that homeowners put in. The process is very simple. We go by guidelines, we go by some rules, and we go by the docs. And we decide if what you put in is something that we can approve, or we need to deny, or needs modifications of what you request. The portal. I want to talk about the first residential portal because the first residential portal is sort of a work in progress. But as of today, I understand the architectural modifications button will now work and actually leads itself towards a form that you can fill out, upload your documents, everything. Tomorrow I will test that because it just got completed. So it should be working. I do want to go through sort of the process everybody knows, and I'm going to beg everybody to please submit your ACC forms for work that you do, because we're now in a situation where First Residential is going through the community and looking and saying, hey, that doesn't look like something we would approve, and they're going to be, well, and asking for the approval. Did you get this approved? And so now we're in the position where people are having to redo things, and sometimes they're pretty things, but they're not things that we allow in the community. So please, before you do something, go ahead and submit the form, okay? We're gonna make it easy, the process easy. It's much quicker than it used to be. Sometimes it's just literally a few days before you get approval or before we come back and say, hey, we need this data or that data, okay? That's the simple process of the ACC, so please utilize it. I'm gonna go, if we can go to the next thing, I'm gonna go to sort of the guidelines that we have developed, and we're going to make decisions based on these guidelines. So I'll go through it not verbatim, but so you kind of understand. A lot of people want to do more stones, and that's fine. If you want to do more stones, if you want to do different types of landscaping, well, we're open to it, but we're open to it within these guidelines. And that is that you must have 10 feet of grass in the front of your home. So that 10 feet needs to remain grass. And the sidewalk does count as part of that 10 feet, but you do have to have 10 feet of grass. All right, colors of stones, so easy because they're generally ones that are muted. So you're allowed white, you're allowed stones that are earth tones, but you're not allowed stones that are bright blue. You're not allowed stones that are bright yellow. So things that you know, bright reds, lava rocks are okay, they're earth tones, right? So things like that are going to be fine. So we made it simple enough that most people will understand what is allowed and what's not allowed based on these guidelines. And this will be published to the portal. So everybody will have a copy of this. And if you have questions, I know I'm free. Drew Boslow is free. Stephen Fay is free. Those are the three people who make up the committee. So all of us are available for questions and we're happy to take them. The form of the stone, really easy. If you don't have like a brick wall or something containing your wall, you can't have a straight line. You've got to have curvature to it. So if you're just putting stones in, don't put a straight line, create a curvature. We're going to ask you for a map of the landscaping that you're going to put in. So it should indicate that. At least 7 plants, and I'm going to get to some photos of why certain things were done, but they're going to get notifications because they're not things that we're going to approve. You need 7 plants in front of your house. It's very simple. Very simple. 3 palms are required in front of your house. That's also simple. That's what GL put in. I think in 99% of homes, there's a couple of exceptions, I understand. But basically, if you had 3 palms, you have to keep 3 palms. All right, the design of the stone. Again, nothing complex here. If the front of your house has more than 50% stone, you need 2 different colored stones and you need 2 different freeforms. Because what we don't want is a community of just blanket stone. That's not going to look pretty. That's not what we're designing here. We're talking about design stonescaping, not zero landscaping, which is a completely, xeriscaping is a completely different look. And that is not allowed here. So side and back of homes are basically treated the same way. If you have your property fenced in, well, for the most part, we don't, nobody's gonna, and you can't see it from the road. What goes on behind there is basically your business, but submit it to the ACC. We still want to know what you're doing. You still have to submit your permits. You still have to submit who's doing the work. Other than that, that's allowed. But most people have their sides open, or a lot of people have their sides open. The rules of the front are similar to the rules of the side. So corner homes are subject to those same rules. Drainage is important. You need to show us that if you are stoning the side of your house, you need to have a method that it's going to allow and that you have supported drainage off of your property. Finally, landscape lighting. Super, super easy. That is white lighting is the only thing that we're going to approve. It can be in the 3,000 yellowish K range, or it can be Kelvin range of 6,000, which is bright white. The only thing that we ask is that you do not have it shining directly into a window or onto another house where it may disturb them. Other than that, that's the guidelines that we are putting forth, and happy to take questions at the end of this. Thanks for everyone's time.
Okay. The next means was this supposed to be your supposed to be Stevens? All right.
Oh, yes, the pictures. Can we go back? So, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so these are images of acceptable stonescaping, because as you can see, okay, this is about 50%, but it allows for the 10 feet and it has 2 different stones. So they've done a nice job there, and that's something we would absolutely approve. Again, something we would approve. The stones come from the side of the house out to the front, but leaves at least 10 feet, if not more. And that is not 50%, so we don't worry about the second color of stones there. So again, here, this is a corner property that actually recently went from having a lot less stone to having a lot more, reduced its need for changing out the pallets from 9 pallets of grass to 5 pallets of grass. So this person decided they're going to put a little less grass in, but it still looks great. They did put a second color of stone because it was right around the 50% mark. Again, this is no problem. This allows for the 10 feet of grass, and we are calculating from here because they are on the sidewalk. So again, all things that are good. Unacceptable. So we have one here that I would consider xeriscaping. That person is getting a notification. It does not have 7 plants. So there are a few things that person is going to have to fix. Over here, we've got stones going down to the bottom, right to the street. The first 10 feet need to have grass. So this person is having to kick back as well, 10 feet of sod there. On the other side, you can't see in the picture, but they did a big island of blue stone, bright blue stone. That's going to have to be modified. So again, these things are things to be looking out for. So.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Stephen. I want to mention, and we did before, we may all have questions for Dr. Phil Harmon, and I even have questions. So as soon as we get to the end, we're just going to open the floor for a few minutes to talk. Okay? Perfect. Do you have something you want to add?
No, I just wanted to reiterate, so like we said at the beginning, we have some real estate agents in the audience as well to answer questions about how it's impacting home value. Mike, in about 10 more minutes, 10 minutes of a presentation to go through, probably less. Then we'll open it up for Q&A, and then we'll jump into.
So he was like literally putting out like what's acceptable, like pictures of houses.
A little bit that way so they can.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Kaminsky, and I just want to touch on a couple of things regarding the landscaping, because for some of you, you've already gone ahead and transformed your lawn from Floritan to palmetto, and that's great. For those that are looking to transform their lawn and converting to palmetto, we're going to work to get some information as far as vendors to work with, okay? And then as far as we're going to be sending out information as far as what you want to do. Don't just put the grass down. You want to have some preventive maintenance on top of that. We've had some homeowners who put it down, ignored it, and run into a few challenges. So we'll give you some more information later as we do that. So just more of it's on the horizon there. And I know you're going to have some more questions regarding this, so if you can touch on that as well. That's really it on that slide. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, Palm Beach Broward, our landscaping vendor. What we're doing is we're reviewing the entire contract right now. They've been with us just over a year. We've learned about them. They've learned about us. And so what we want to do is really get a good understanding from all of our residents, who's using them and who isn't. You'd be surprised how many folks have opted out. So we're going to be putting together a survey. It's going to go to everyone. And we just want to know, if you're opting in or you're opting out. If you're opting in, we're going to provide the services that are going to become available. We need to talk to them a little bit before this survey goes out. We just need to touch base with them, hear from them. We've just had internal meetings only at this point, but we want to talk to them, hear what they have to say. Because like I said, they've learned a lot about our community. They went into this thinking one thing, some of that remained as is. They came out of it maybe thinking of a few other things that they've learned along the way. For some of us who've used them, we've learned a few things as well. So more to come on this, but I just want to give you a heads up on that. A survey is coming. If you haven't put your email or registered in the portal yet, please go. Please do, because the survey is going to be coming via email. And we'll go from there. Okay? So thank you all.
Thank you, Mike. So I just wanted to thank Mike and Stephen. Thank you guys for preparing the presentation. If you notice, they also put their email addresses on the PowerPoint. They're available for questions or follow-up following this meeting. They've both been extremely helpful throughout the community to help people with not only contacting vendors they've used and been successful with, how to know you're getting the right type of grass from your vendor, because I know that's a concern as well. So we're trying to give you guys all the information that we can. We also want to eliminate rumors as well. So a lot of rumors, like you heard, someone will say, oh, I put in bluegrass and I still got it. So clearly it's not right. Well, how do you know it actually is purely that bluegrass? Or how do you know you got the right species of it? It wasn't a crossbred, or you got something cheaper, even though you thought you were buying something more expensive. So again, even though the board isn't recommending certain vendors today or saying go to these individuals, Stephen, Mike, please reach out to them. They'll talk to you about your specific needs, vendors that they may have used, other community members as well. At this time, we're going to transition to questions and answers. I prepared 3 questions to get the ball rolling. I'm gonna ask the questions, then we're gonna open it up to the floor. Stephen Cohen's gonna facilitate it, so we just ask that you raise your hand, not throw anything at Stephen. And we'll address the questions as fast as we can, okay? So I'm gonna go first. My first question is for Dr. Harmon. So as you've heard, and included with your presentation, you've heard from others, the board is taking a surgical approach to replace the grass throughout the community. So really, there's multiple options. There's the option of let's just assess everyone and replace all the grass throughout the whole community, or address it where we see areas of concern. The board has decided in common areas and other areas where we see impact, we're going to address it surgically and replace it as we see. With that said, we want to make sure we're being as financially responsible with the association's money. In your experience from working with other associations and others who've done this, what do you think about the board's approach?
Yeah, good question. And I've seen various approaches from replacing wall to wall at once to trying to plug or ignore it. Let's go to the opposite, ignore it altogether. Maybe it'll get better. And there've been some downfalls, pitfalls for each of those. And then what lies in the middle is more of a surgical type of replacement as needed as the disease progresses and takes lawns to the point where they're not acceptable from a visual standpoint. Replace them with a grass that won't again develop that disease. And so, it's not my place to decide this. I think it makes good sense to be in the middle of those 2 options. The downfalls of replacing wall to wall have been in certain cases where folks have accumulated an extreme expense at that, millions of dollars worth of sod. Another downfall was in the case of bitter blue, where it wasn't bitter blue that was purchased, so it had to be done again. So, going all out with one grass has its risks and expenses. Ignoring it hasn't worked for any of the communities that I've dealt with this in the past either. It hasn't gone away. Florida has continued to suffer, it's continued to look poor. So that hasn't worked out. Plugging is a different option, a surgical option where small bits of grass are put in. It generally takes too long for us to realize an acceptable lawn. So, there's a wide spectrum of options. I think that being in the surgical category is where we've seen the most success, both financial, fiscal responsibility standpoint, but also from the biology, using the palmetto, exploring other grasses, potentially citron blue as we get more data about it. And then watching these lawns as they're replaced in the most severely impacted areas, learn what works for this community and move forward with that strategy. It makes a lot of sense to me from the biology standpoint, the fiscal standpoint, and the aesthetic standpoint is in your court, in your community's court, as far as deciding what and when has to be done. From a biology standpoint, we can recommend and tell you what's likely to occur, what's occurred in the other, 1,000 different communities that this is impacted, and how it's likely going to play out here. But in the end, it's up to you guys to make those sorts of decisions.
Perfect. My second question, so I roll the dice, so it's for both the real estate agents that we have. So I'm going to start with Tiffany. I roll the dice and your name came first. So one big question we get from a lot of homeowners is the impact of property values. So what we're seeing throughout the community is the property values keep going up and up and up. But we know as all homeowners that a significant amount of your impact of the value of your home is related to your landscaping. So whether maintaining your landscaping, have a good curb appeal, whether it's from the community entrance or so on. So what we'd like to do is maybe talk a little bit about how Sugarcane Mosaic has been impacting your community, if any, right? Maybe we're seeing an artificial growth that it hasn't been, but we'd like your guys' expert opinion. And I know it's all about Tiffany, but I know you guys work as a team. So.
We're one person. Yeah, we're one. I'm Tiffany, this is Erin. Nice to meet everybody. So to be honest, in this market, yes, curb appeal is everything. It has not affected home values in terms of, educating clients on the virus. They're still willing to pay whatever, in this market. But I think that homeowners are definitely frustrated, to hear that this is just an ongoing issue. So I don't think that property values have been affected, however.
Right. And a follow-up question to that is, when a homeowner is looking to purchase in the community, is this something that's brought forward to them as a, hey, just so you know, this house is impacted for Sugarcane Mosaic? Or is it something where the homeowners come in with a lab kit and they're testing? Like, how do they ultimately find out about it?
Right, I mean, to be honest, a lot of homeowners will ask, they see the grass. Their first question is, what's going on with the grass? So we're honest, we advise that there is, a virus, it's an ongoing issue. Tuscany doesn't have a ton of grass, if you will. So they're not too concerned. If it is an expense that they're gonna have to face, I think they're okay. But it is, I think today was educational in terms of now we can say, this is, you can't just replace it with any kind of grass. Now we can go back and say, look, it's very specific as to what you can replace it with. But yeah, I think more often we are educating our clients, but more often than not, they are seeing it. So they're bringing it to our attention first.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming out today as well.
Thank you.
Same question, Rachel, Tommy, for you guys as well. And just so you guys know, both of them kind of represent the majority of sales throughout the Tuscany, both in the south and the north, which is why you all probably get the flyers, which is how we select them. So we're truly appreciative that all four of you guys are able to make it out tonight as well.
Thank you for having us. I'm Rachel, my husband Tommy, we're former residents of Tuscany South.
Well, I think we're in such an unprecedented market right now that, like, I agree with Tiffany, I don't think it's affected the values of the properties. I mean, there's such a low amount of inventory out there that people are, whether the grass is dead, whether there's a virus, in a normal market, curb appeal would be a very, very important thing. In a market like this, I don't think that the grass is a major issue. Obviously, it's not a pretty sight. It's a sight for sore eyes, but it's definitely not a deterrent for a buyer coming in and purchasing the property. I think obviously they're more focused on the actual residents than, the grass and the landscaping. It is really nice to see that, at least 50% of the neighborhood has changed their landscaping in the front because it just makes it look a lot nicer. So, and, we were driving around today. There are big pockets of, the sugarcane, but it's not, it's not like that big of an eyesore where buyers are going to come into the community and be like, no. And Tiffany was also right. There's not a lot of grass. It's not like we have half-acre lots where you have massive amounts of grass. I mean, there's very small amounts of grass, so I don't think it's that big of an issue right now, especially in this type of market. Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Perfect. And then my last question, and again, once I open up to the audience, we're going to start with those here first, then we're going to open it up to online, but I want you guys to see that you can ask from the board, you can ask from anybody else. So this next question is for Skip. Skip, first service residential, you're going to manage a lot of properties in the community. And for those of you who don't know, Skip was the only association regional manager to attend the Sugarcane Mosaic virus. So Castle wasn't on the call. There was a 4-hour seminar you did. First Service was the only one with representation there because it's obviously impacts their communities. We should have been on there, which we are thankful for. But can you just describe what other properties are doing, our approach? Are we on the right tracks?
Absolutely. So no, you're not alone. You're not. I need to put some color on it. This is one of my 14 associations, roughly 7,060 doors that I oversee with, of course, Kingouts and assistants. You are one of my 6 that are affected by this. So the question now, what do we do? And really, to Professor's point, it's literally ripping it all out and putting the right stuff in. So what are some of my communities doing as it relates to kind of put it closer to home? In Delray Beach, I have a community with significantly more grass than what is here. But they literally have partnered with a vendor that when we get to that point, we'll be able to share our trusted vendors as well and pull together and got better pricing to do the entire job. As it's kind of more individualized here, my recommendation based on what we've seen in our other communities, one would be in Boynton, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Equus community that's out there, equestrian community. Kind of the same thing. Homeowners have kind of partnered up together with vendors that we have provided that we know are putting the right items down and being able to say, all right, who needs it? And we get a better price and better installation price by working together. One of the things from First Service Residential that we provide is, I hate the word bulk buy because it makes me feel like Costco, but we have a buying power that is truly second to none. As the largest company of what we do in North America, the vendors that we work with and the individuals which we can recommend typically come with much better pricing, and they truly have a dog in the fight, because it's not just this community, it's other communities that they service as well. So the long and short of it is, you're not alone, and everybody, a lot are going through it. I would say of the 7-ish thousand doors, probably close to 4,000. I call them doors, homes, or condos are being affected right now. And it's hard when we try to work with the vendors that we have. They say, absolutely, we can do it, but the turnaround time on it isn't tomorrow. It is next week. By the time they get everything in, make sure that the product is correct, everything's sound, some of those turnaround times are 30 to 60 days, realistically speaking. So it's a process for sure, but it's one that we, as First Service Residential and partners with Tuscany, are able to help facilitate. Does that help answer your question?
That's perfect. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Stephen, to facilitate.
Okay.
So, no, Stephen, go that way.
Stephen, if I can ask from the board perspective, one thing, Dr. Harmon, thank you again for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. You've been with us on this for a year, and the one question I have is from a seasonality perspective. You know, right now we're coming out of it as days get better, grass gets healthier, there's much stress. When is the best time to replace? If there is a best time to replace?
Yeah, so sod in South Florida can be installed any time of year. We have, you don't have to worry about the extreme cold temperatures that we see in the Panhandle affecting St. Augustine grass. In general, you know, that's true for landscapes like here that have excellent irrigation systems and then have been prepared properly before installation of the sod product is chosen. So it goes with a caveat. It can be done at the time of year as long as you do proper site preparation, ensure that you do an irrigation audit and that you have the capability to give that grass what it needs. And this is particularly important during the winter dry months. That's when it's sometimes challenging to install St. Augustine grass lawns because of that lack of natural rainfall and water. If you have that square away, you can do it any time of year. It's South Florida down here. It's a different answer for the Panhandle or Painesville.
The other question I have is from a resource perspective. You all worked on providing a lot of resources to residents that they can go to and get. If anybody in the audience tonight or anybody has a friend who's not here tonight has those questions, where do they turn to get those resources?
So we have an extension library that has some publications. The Palm Beach County Extension website has additional frequently asked questions and additional resources available. There is 2 different webinars now online that will pop up in a Google search. If you type lethal viral necrosis, University of Florida. One of them is hosted by the Sod Solutions company that helped us to organize it, and they were kind of the liaison between UF and the sod producers who are also learning about this and dealing with it, not on their farms, but as producing sod goes. And so the webinars are very extensive. If you need to fall asleep at night, you can watch one of those all the way through, and it will cure your insomnia guarantee. That's the only guarantee it'll give you tonight. But those seminars do have, from multiple perspectives, all the information, best management practices for dealing with this from many different perspectives, from the county faculty perspective, the agronomic perspective, and my colleagues in the agronomy department who deal with fertilizers and the proper procedure for planting grass, and from the pathology side of it, which is one piece of that pie. So those webinars, the Palm Beach County Extension's website, and our EDIS Extension website at the University of Florida would be the top places for recommending for homeowners to go for information. They can always reach out for diagnostic services to UF or to private labs UF and the county extension faculty that we have in Palm Beach in the area are your best resource for diagnostics to confirm here. It's not much an issue, you know, we have it. See it. But reach out to UF if you have questions, to myself or your county faculty representatives, and we're happy to address.
And if anybody ever has a question about an approved vendor, or can they go to you all for, because you do have a list of vendors and you all recommend them.
Yes, and with a caveat, we have vendors that we recommend through our Turf Producers Florida, which is a nonprofit sod cooperative. They are a marketing, not marketing, they are a cooperative, I guess, of sod producers. They manage licenses for the sod producers. And so the TPF website, Betsy McGill is the executive director. She maintains that website very well, and it will give you the list of approved vendors for those different grasses that you're looking for. And again, the two that have that certification or that somewhat assurance of genetic quality are the palmetto and the citrus blue. And those vendors are listed on the TPF website, as well as the Sod Solutions, the company website. Sod Solutions is a for-profit company. TPF is a not-for-profit well.
And the one thing I would say to everybody here, because one of the things we ran into last year is when you replace your yard, if you replace it, document everything. And as Stephen wants you to document ACC requests, document where you got the grass from, keep all your receipts, just document everything, take pictures of everything. The more methodical you all are when you do a lawn replacement, the more we can help you downrange. If something happens, we say, well, this is what we did, but we just need to know the steps of what you did. Because we've had people in the community come back to us and say, we'll replace the grass, but we didn't keep it. So just please be methodical in the approach.
The only thing I'd add, I meant to say earlier was what we call is vertical integration from the sod producer through to the installer. And if you have a management company that's helping you to ensure that sod product is what it's supposed to be from the grower direct to your installer, that has been one of our keys to success for community dealing with this. So having a sod producer that you're working with is very important. They're really trying to do their best. And where it gets mixed up, I think a lot of times is in the middleman market for sod products.
And as Skip kind of alluded to, and some of the publications you called out from the University of Florida, if anybody leaves this room and just wants to learn more, if you just Google search Sugarcane Mosaic, the UF website will come up with Sugarcane, and then it talks about installation, times of installation, regional links to the West Palm Beach website, which kind of gives you all those resources. So that's where we've been partnering with First Service to kind of capture that information. A part of that is there is a communication plan scheduled to follow this meeting. So with some of the links and some helpful tips and stuff like that. So Skip's been working on that. Our First Connect website has information and links available as well. So if you log on there after today, you'll see it. As well as we did do a study through University of Florida. I forgot to mention it before, where we sent it to their lab to test to confirm that Sugarcane Mosaic. So we did already do that as well. So that's also the publication of those results are available on First Service Connect. So I don't, before any of you, please start asking.
Well, I don't know if there's any other questions before we move on. All right, so I think you had your hand up earlier first, so.
Thankfully, my grass looks really good, except for a couple of little spots. I moved in May. I don't know if the previous owner did any change out. So how do I know what kind of grass is there? Or is there a way to know?
That's a difficult question. There's not a tried and true guaranteed way to know what it is. It can be that we take pictures of it and submit them to Extension, myself, to your county extension agent, to Dr. Kevin Kinworthy, our turfgrass breeder. I'm sure that the folks here on the board can facilitate that if you'd like to go through them. If you'd like to take pictures of that grass, we'll give you our best estimate of what it is, and we can generally tell if it's Floritam or not by looking at it. We can't necessarily tell you if it's not Floritam what it is, but it doesn't necessarily matter as well because it won't die if it's not Floritam. So I'll say that, and I'll also say that there are a lot of reasons why lawns die in South Florida, and not just the Sugarcane Mosaic virus problem that we're seeing. There are fungal diseases, insect pests, weed pressures and problems. So, keep that in mind as you deal with these small spots. It may not be this virus if it's already been replaced.
Right, that's what I wasn't sure, because the backyard is perfect, the side yard, on my corner, the side yard is almost perfect, and now with the changing weather, the changing seasons, it's growing really healthy, except for a couple of spots.
I encourage folks to take pictures of the lawn where they suspect they might have the virus or for cultivar ID. And to do that, pull up a piece of the lawn that looks yellow or brown, hold it at arm's length with your cell phone. That's the distance that we need, the resolution that we need. And then email that to your county extension faculty, me, or through the board. And then we'll be able to look at that. And most of the time, particularly in a community where we know the virus is already established, we can make a diagnosis based on that picture. We also have a Facebook page called the Rapid Turf Diagnostic Service. You can submit pictures there if you'd rather do it that way, but the email tends to be a little more direct route for us.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Well, yeah, why don't we, let's jump in there.
Quick question, there's a house or two up here on the north side of the north that's got, it looks like a patch palm maybe or something. It's definitely not a broadleaf, like a St. Augustine, looks good. But what are we gonna have from the board? What is gonna be acceptable and how much research are you doing into things like that look good, but they're not St. Augustine?
So right now, the board's recommending the palmetto grass. That's our recommendation based on the research that we're hearing. That doesn't mean that the bitter blue is not recommended or that, if you hold the two grasses up, they look very similar. There's just not enough research for us to support bitter blue. But the acceptable grasses would be bitter blue or palmetto, and we're recommending palmetto.
So that grass is gonna have to go.
It looks good. If the grass doesn't follow the established standards, once they're published, it would have to be removed if it doesn't meet the standards.
Okay, so you're sticking to the two, just only the two grasses.
For right now. Now, with that said, as we start building out these standards, so the standards have never been defined, right? So let's say, for example, as a community, once we put them through, I know Steve Spitz, he did like draft one, where they're gonna pull together a subcommittee to really review it, bring it apart, it's gonna go legal, and they open up to more options. We're gonna be partners with First Service to determine how we establish these. Maybe it'll come to three, but right now, we're really targeting in our messaging that we want residents to switch to palmetto. So communication wise, everything's the same palmetto, but we're also, based on some of the recent research, the bitter blue is also next. Citra
blue, if I could add to that, I think I know that walked around and we saw that house you talked about it, and that is a finer texture grass called Mosiac grass. And it is something that we could discuss and I can provide additional information. It's not a host virus, but it has other issues with it as far as it requiring additional maintenance. It's not a golf level of maintenance for that turf, but it's certainly more than what we had with our chloroquine and more than what we expect from palmetto or citra blue. So it does not get the virus that die from it. Has other fungal disease issues that are very serious, as well as thatch accumulation issues, maintenance issues for your companies that are coming in will be more expensive from what I've heard from other communities for that species of grass.
And that is the point. We're trying to address this from an overall perspective. We're trying to address this as an overall perspective from the 455 homes with general landscaping. Some homeowners I know have opted out of all services. They're okay with the higher maintenance. I know there's a couple of residents at North that mow their lawn every other day, and that's what they like. They don't want anybody touching it. So we're going to address those as well once we put these guidelines together.
So, just like my neighbor here, my portion of grass is immaculate so far. I don't know if we're just lucky. So I wonder when would Tuscany start changing the common areas?
Okay, we're gonna get to that in the next slide.
And me, is it a recommendation to change or is there a timeline, like demanding that people change to the new grass?
So I'm gonna cover that myself in next slide.
Okay.
Because it applies. All right, Tiffany?
Just wondering if possibly a one pager could be created just in terms of what types of grass the homeowners should change to, just in case we're asked that question, and we could just email that to, new homeowners. Thank you.
We
We have a white paper on Mosaic and LBN, the Sugarcane Mosaic virus. I'm happy to share with the board. It has some talking points as well as some of the condensed information that might be helpful. And I'd be willing to work with the board to come up with something more specific to your question as well, if needed and requested.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank you. For those of us that have changed out the grass, can we expect in the dry season, year after year, for grass to turn brown?
I don't know of a reason why you would expect to have to see brown grass in the dry season after you changed it out. Did you change it with a specific grass like palmetto or something like?
I changed my grass last year on palmetto. It did turn, not as bad as that, but the landscaper said it's going to turn green, it's going to turn green. And sure enough, about 5-6 weeks ago, it turned green. You know, it looks like turf. But he said it is going to turn brown in the wintertime.
Yeah, I don't think that's a necessity for palmetto in this area. This year, we did have exceptionally cool weather, even this far south, and different varieties can be more sensitive to going dormant, turning brown. Maybe the case that the palmetto, and that dormancy trigger can be affected by the amount of fertilizer. Sometimes when we first install a lawn, we add extra water to keep it alive. It's more juvenile and lush. And then it's more sensitive to cool temperatures. Doesn't kill the grass, it makes it go brown. This far south, we generally don't see that as an issue. This year, we did see some browning out of grass all the way down into even the Homestead area. We saw some of it. And that grass was very juvenile. So I would say that, there's multiple things going on there. I don't think it's related to disease. I think it's a cold temperature and possibly a time of installation and care prior to installation. No, that shouldn't be a yearly thing where you have browned out grass this far south. It may occasionally.
Just to follow up, in the dry season, would it help for individual owners to water their lawn more often?
That's a double-edged sword. In most cases, it does not. It does more damage for homeowners to adjust that timer. If you're doing your own lawn, then follow the IPIS recommendations for determining when it needs it, when the footsteps stay, when the leaves fold, it needs the water. When it's brown, it doesn't mean it needs water. So the professionals generally are better equipped to get it set, and the homeowners can tweak it a little. Where they add more water, generally causes more problems, from my experience. Not all of them, but generally.
Is it possible to simply add palmetto seed on these lines that are cascading, sitting out? We see them.
So that's a good question. And up north, we do seed to introduce new grasses into lawns and blends. We don't have palmetto seed or St. Augustine seed that we can use. The closest thing to that we do have is called plugging. And it's essentially you purchase pots of grass that are produced on a sod farm, in racks and trays, and then you transplant those in a grid pattern within their existing grass. I was just at another community today where some of the lawns looked very good. But they were Floritan, and they expected they were going to be affected in the coming couple of years. So they were going to try doing some plugging of palmetto within that Floritan. And then allow that palmetto to grow out. And if it does affect it, the Floritan will die. The palmetto theoretically will take over and fill in without the need for sod. It sounds good from a theoretical standpoint, and I've seen it work, and I've seen it fail miserably for reasons that include Floritan is very aggressive before it gets the virus, and so it can outcompete those pots. And so it depends on when the virus comes in and how selective it is, how much it's spread when that does come in as to what you're left with. And in some cases, we've seen where that's been attempted, you have to go ahead and resod anyway, because there's just not enough palmetto there to take over in a timely manner that results in an acceptable lawn. So it's a possibility where they're trying it in the Tivoli community is where they have lawns not yet affected in parts of the community, but they know it's coming. So it's yet to be seen whether it actually works well.
You mentioned the date 2013 a couple of times. What changed in 2013?
Yeah, great question. We've been working on that since 2013 and still don't have a satisfactory answer. We know that this virus has a unique genetic code. We don't know where it came from. The closest genetic match that we have is from corn in Ohio. How it got down here. It's not the exact same as maize or corn in Ohio, but that's the closest match. Next one after that is from corn in Kenya, Africa. So this virus is distributed worldwide. Viruses mutate randomly from time to time, as we all are sick of hearing about with COVID, I'm sure. Plant viruses do the same sort of thing. And we think this is a random mutation in the variant that came up and then it gained this function of being able to kill floridan, which it couldn't do before. But we don't know exactly where, when, or what genetic difference. We don't have that kind of resource or research being done on the plant viruses as we do some of the human viruses. So, that's it.
Okay, I think we have one more question.
Just a quick one. I pretty much on top of the plugin. So in my situation, I have gotten 25% of my landscape, the grass looks pretty much what's up on screen. So is plugging an option in which I can, utilize it as opposed to replacing my whole lawn?
Yeah.
Good money saver.
I'm sorry?
It's a good money saver.
Yeah, it's a big money saver when it works. And it's a question really for the community from the science side of it. What will happen, when I can tell you what happens, it'll take longer for it to grow in. It will be susceptible to weeds, so it'll require additional herbicides to keep the weeds from growing into this damaged area as the plugs expand. Not necessarily a bad thing, it's just the fact of it. It will sometimes require additional fungicides or insecticide applications like you would have for sod for those plugs as they're growing. So it's not a silver bullet, and in the meantime, as it's growing in, the quality of the lawn will be what you would expect. It'll be little circles of the grass trying to grow out, and that's an aesthetic decision that the community and then you all have to make. Is it acceptable or not? It'll take longer. Generally, work will require inputs during that period, and if it doesn't work, we'll require sodding at the end of it anyway. So those would be the potential pitfalls and what's likely to occur from the biologist science.
Just one more quick question, just to what Mr. Spitz. Would it be possible to have you maybe come over right now, some advice on my wall as to what I can do, where we can physically look at? Take some measurements. So I want to do the stones well. I want to try to cut down the grass here as much as I can. Would it be possible to set up some kind of like,
Absolutely. If there's many people's properties, I'm happy to do it. Absolutely. Yep.
Some advice.
Yep. Email me, get in touch, and we'll figure out time.
And we'll have us.
So Stephen, we have about 30 minutes remaining, but we do have a couple questions online.
We do. Well, I have a question, if I can.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Throw this one out for Dr. Harmon. In this community, there are a lot of shading in the backyards. Inside of the houses, the grass is having a very difficult time growing. Is there, out of the two varieties that are least susceptible, is there one that's better than the other when it comes to shade?
Yeah, both palmetto and citra blue are are more adapted to shade than floridan. They are generally, we've done shade studies at UF, our Citra research facility. They both compete in shade better than floridan. I'd say the difference is that in the shade, the palmetto is more likely to develop fungal disease, specifically gray leaf spot in the summer, and then citra blue. So they can both be used in shade. Fungal disease will be more of an issue in the shade with reduced airflow on the palmetto than the citra blue, but they can both be used for single.
Okay, excellent. All right, so
I'll tell you the names and then you can just have them take themselves off mute. So the first one's Jennifer Morris.
Okay, so Jennifer Morris, you're up now. You can take yourself off of mute.
Hi, I had a question for Dr. Harmon.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? It sounds like I'm echoing.
Oh, we hear you very well.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to find out like what the status is on the research with Citra Blue and the virus, because I know, I think it might have come out in 2018, and I know the virus takes a couple years, but I just was more curious on what type of research and what's the status of it with Citra Blue.
Where's the microphone? Oh, it's over on that end. Thanks, Jennifer. Hold on.
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
She won't hear through you from that.
Okay, where's the microphone that she can hear from?
It'll be at the computer. Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Citra Blue was released in 2018. We have 4 years of data from it. We actually planted it 1 year before it was released in one of the Tivoli communities. So far, it has not died from the virus. It has been planted in a landscape with lawns on either side that had the virus, and it didn't die. So we're fairly confident. We're gaining more confidence each year that this is not going to die from the virus, like the other varieties. Some of the other questions are about the bugs, the worms, the other issues that Citra Blue may have that we haven't seen yet. So as far as the virus goes, we're again, cautiously optimistic. We've seen no evidence that it develops lethal viral necrosis. Every time we've seen lethal viral necrosis in a stand of one of these other grasses, it's been Floritan genotype that's encroached. So again, we're cautiously optimistic, and we're cautious because it's a new grass, and there is still the possibility for a problem to arise that would, we don't think be the virus, but something else that would make it not desirable. So far, we haven't seen that. It is our grass, so we want to be extra cautious about recommending it because we want folks to have nice lawns and not waste their money if it turns out to be a dud, which is a possibility.
And the next question is from Camille.
Camille, if you can unmute your mic, please.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my question. I'm in Tuscany South. We spend part of the year down there. We were down from January to March. I have a couple of observations and a question for the board and the management company, I guess. So it seems to me that a strategic approach is needed here. Like Tuscany South doesn't seem to be terribly affected. And as kindly noted by our real estate folks that were on the call, the market is really, not overly concerned about the grass, which to me says there's time to figure this thing out, especially in light of the fact that, according to the doctor, we're still getting reasonably sure about what will work and what won't, but we're not quite there yet, is what I heard. So my question is, or my observation is, why don't we think about putting together a strategic plan for the entire property related to management, central management of replacement of the lawns, mostly in Tuscany South. I'm not sure exactly what's happening in Tuscany North, but I mean, if we need to replace the lawns, we should strategically do it. It should be centrally managed because there are too many, things that can happen if we leave it to individuals to do it. So, I mean, I'm happy to pay the cost for my lawn. I'm happy to pay an assessment, whatever it takes to do it right and make sure that we stand the least chance of having problems going forward once we do that and spend all the money. I mean, also the common areas have to be addressed. So, we need to be able to structure that out so we're not hitting people up for, 15, 20 grand in a pop, right? I mean, nobody's going to be able to afford that. So the other question I have, and it was referenced earlier, is around the fact that, people are opting out of landscaping and so on. And one of the guys mentioned a survey that's going out. I would like to just give my input that if people choose to do that, it shouldn't affect how much they pay or any of that. That really should not come into the equation. The board should not be willing or able to make changes to people based on them wanting to take control of certain things, whether it be, their lawn or anything for that matter. So I'm happy to get involved, even though I'm not down there most of the time, if there's assistance needed. But I strongly recommend that we take a strategic approach so that we come out at the end with the result that we all want. Thanks.
Perfect. And this is Jonathan Zaretsky, the board president. On both your points, I agree to both. So we're actually doing both. The first one is we're taking a very surgical and methodical approach to this, which, as I don't know if you heard in the beginning what Professor Harmon said, is we're kind of taking the middle ground. So we're not just assessing everyone that 20 grand that you had talked about, or the 30 grand per home to replace all the grass. And we're not doing the
implants or whatever it was called, the
Plugs.
plugs. We're kind of doing the middle ground, being very surgical, methodical, and we do plan on communicating it out. In terms of your second point, you're correct. Even if they opt out, they're still paying the same association fees as those who do not opt out. What we're being very methodical about is when working with First Service, they've made it clear that there's a lot more to think through than just a simple opt out or opt in. And what does that mean? And without going into it in this call, because it's obviously not the purpose of it, it's if you opt out of landscaping, does that mean you opt out of tree trimming automatically? Does that mean you opt out of your bushes getting trimmed? Is it opt out all or nothing? If you do opt out, how do we know what you've opted out for? If your lawn wants to get serviced on the winter months and not the summer months, what does that look like? So there's a lot of complication associated to opt in and opt out. But one thing is for certain is that whether or not you opt in or opt out, you're still paying the same assessment fee.
Thank you.
Perfect. Next.
That's it for the online questions.
Okay.
So let's turn over to you for your final wrap-ups.
Okay, so thank you for those that have remained. So we've gone, I had skipped this and Skip has already has done his thing. We've got notifications to unit owners about replacing their lawn. We've got the violation process and there'll be comment in the common areas. Well, if I'm going to, I'd like to reverse things because the first thing people want to know is what are we going to do as an association about the commons areas? One, I wanted to get more familiar before I started tackling this and meeting Dr. Harmon and getting together with everyone. As Dr. Harmon has suggested, you don't want to replace 100% of your lawn. If half or 70% of your lawn is doing really well, take care of the things that just need attention to and slowly do it. Because like, as he mentioned, there's a big risk that if you get the wrong, you get the wrong grass, not that you've been purposely misled, but you want to reduce your investment or your risk. Thank you. Risk. Very good. Thank you. So that's what we plan on doing as an association, start tackling the areas that need it the most. And you know what I really like about the part is it possible to mix sod with plugs so that as the new sod is working and the plugs can, seep out and start taking over grass that will slowly die in the future.
New plugs where you're going to sod?
In addition to sodding. Because like I noticed that not all sod, I think they call them springs, the pieces that grow out.
Sprigs, yeah.
Yeah, so I bought sod in the past and nothing happens. It just remains in that rectangle while there are others that start, seeping into other areas. Are there different varieties of those two?
Palmetto and citron bush should both produce tillers and stall ones that should jump out.
That's important to know, and I think that will help reduce your cost by starting out in the areas that really need it because they'll start moving into other areas that are green. So those are the things that we want to do as far as I hope that answers your question. If it hasn't, we'll turn it over.
The common areas look pretty good. I mean, I walk with development all the time. The common areas look pretty good. There's some homes that look really bad.
Some homes that look a lot worse, yeah. Right.
But of the common, I haven't seen anything that's.
There are issues with the common areas and, it's, especially since we just put down weed feed, all the weeds have died. Now we've got some dark brown patches we have them at home. And so, but if we've covered, if not, Dr. Harmon can jump in and.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know if the decision is that everybody has palmetto.
Yeah.
And although my grass looks good and it's not palmetto, do I have to change my grass?
It really comes down to, Stephen put it in a really good way for me, and this is what I'm kind of communicating out, is if he's circling around the community and he notices there's an issue, then that's where it's going to be a problem, right? So if he's driving by a community and he can visually see that there's a problem, then there's an issue. If you have a spot or you're working through a process, you're going to be working through Stephen. So he's going to know, oh, she's already reached out to me. We're waiting for Dr. Harmon to get back to see if their lawn's going to replace. And that we just ask that you communicate, be transparent to the property manager so he's aware. And as long as you're working with him, we fully understand it. We're not looking for everyone. You said when you walk around the community, I bike right around north. If you look around, a lot of the community looks fine. So we don't want to go with the approach, let's replace grass that looks fine, because that would be a waste of everyone's money. But what we do notice is there's some areas, especially in the entrance, there's some areas in the main parts, even some of the common area on some of the main streets that does need to be replaced. So we're just going to be very surgical with that when we reach out and stuff like that.
That's my question, the sidewalk, the grass that's on the sidewalks, what is that considered our property or common?
It's considered your property. So you're talking about,
That's what I thought.
I have a driveway and a sidewalk, and then there's a little piece of grass towards the end. That's considered, whoever the homeowner is, that's their responsibility.
Okay, that's what I thought, because some of that, like by me too, that looks worse than my lawn, I was like, it's right there, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Still green.
Yeah.
And we have a subcommittee, so Steve Spitz, John Stein, who's on the phone, Mike, have been going around the community, really taking pictures, helping neighbors like you guys, or someone said, oh, Steve, can you guys come over? They've been really helping to make sure like, all right, this home's impacted by Sugarcane, this home's impacted by this home could really save them some money by doing that. So we're trying to be very methodical. As for service share and skip, they have vendors and lists, they're gonna have a communication plan going out. Steven's already been kind of gathering those homes that are affected for a special communication to let you know, hey, during our inspection. But it really comes down to if they're going around the community and they see there's a problem, that's when you know you have an issue. But if they don't see, like if you're looking like, I see no problem, he's probably not gonna see it during the inspection.
Okay, so getting on to the words violation and notifications. From what I understand in history is that this has been going on for a year. So, everyone's really kind of been notified, they're aware. Today was more of an educational kind of thing, question and answer thing. So let's just talk about the violation process. No one likes to be violated. Everyone's like, oh, I got a letter. So what I've noticed in this community is most people are taking it upon themselves not to wait for a violation. They know their lawn looks terrible and they're interested how to fix it, or they just go ahead and they take care of it. So really, if there's some people that are a little bit slow in getting the process going, some people that own property in here, it's their second home, or it's an investment property. They may not even have eyes on what the grass looks like. So the first thing that might go out if I notice that the landscaping's not being paid attention to, so they may just get a friendly letter. Hey, knock on the door. Grass isn't looking so good. Please, start initiating the process. Come 30 days from then, and we go back and we see nothing's been done, and you get a not so friendly letter. Hey, now it's a bigger knock on the door. Eventually, after a certain amount of time, usually it's 3 violation letters that go out. It's going to go to the grievance committee. But I can tell you that most homeowners don't ever get to that point. Most people have very good intentions, don't want to go to the grievance, don't want to pay a fine. Fines, so just regardless whether it's grass or you're leaving your garbage can or you're parking in the street, they could be $100 per day per occurrence, up to $1,000. Who wants to waste their money doing that? No one does. Most people have some good intentions. So I've been really trying to get myself acclimated to the community, getting to know what it looks like, its personality. I've done very little as far as violations are concerned because I'm blasted trying to get my office and everything else working. That's it. So, I'm glad that everybody came. I'm glad, Dr. Harmon, you spent time with us and answered our questions. Leave it up to you close.
That's perfect. So I just wanted to thank everyone, not only our guest speakers, Dr. Harmon, I really do appreciate you coming out. Other members of the board, both that joined remotely, First Service, Skip, Shelby, but also everyone who took the time to attend in the audience. It really means a lot. We're trying to get in-person activities going on. It's nice to see smiling faces. I can't tell you how much it means to be able to see people show facial expressions nowadays compared to behind a mask. So I do want to say thank you. I do want to thank everyone in the community who joined remotely. It does mean a lot when people are participating and involved and engaged within their community. With that said, and I always have to put in a plug, if you're looking to volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers. So if you're someone that wants to, whether you want to join the board, join a committee, join a subcommittee, please reach out to Stephen Cohen. Just shoot him an email and say, hey, Stephen, I love the direction the board is going in. I hate the direction the board's going in. Whatever it is, but I'd like to be able to volunteer and contribute my time to the betterment of our association. The second point I want to leave you guys all with is twofold. First is First Services. This is 30 days today. So please bear with them. I know they're still getting their feet under them while they're trying to help. We throw a lot at them between Sugarcane, Mosaic, and parking on this. So they are doing their best to try to get up to speed. They have been trying to focus on over communicating from communication plans to stuff like that, as well as just some patience with the board. As you guys know, I'm new to this role. Trying the best I can. I'm learning every single day as I look at our bylaws and things. So as they mentioned in terms of a third option of grass, yeah, let's talk about the third option of grass. If it looks nice, if it makes sense, if we can maintain it. We're definitely open to ideas and suggestions, and we want you guys to feel like you can contribute and collaborate with us, so that together we can make a solution for the future. Okay. So with that,
I just have a quick question, and it's not about grass, we're the residents.
I had a nice speech at the end. I mean, he jumped in. It was so great.
I want you to look at it, so I said, let me see this.
All right, I'll go.
This picture of Tuscany has this fake grass around the signage. Are we putting that back on the main road?
Yeah, so we had, so let's end the recording. Thank everyone online, and then we can go into that, because it's not a part of this. So we do know that it's an issue. We went through a lawsuit with GL. It's called the 558, or people refer to it as that. We ended up getting a settlement from that, so we have funds secured to do some of these replacements, including that. George is actually spearheading that with all the issues to let First Service know. So First Service doesn't know what the settlement was, what the issues were.
Hi, y'all. Good evening. Is it too late to ask a question? I had my hand raised before.